Pac-Man World 2 is part of that golden generation of 3D platformers in the late 90s and early 2000s, with other classics like your Marios and your Ape Escapes and your Sly Coopers and so on. Back when the genre really felt like it was at its peak popularity. So today we're going to find out, is Pac-Man World 2 still goated, or is that just nostalgia talking? This was one of my absolute favorite games growing up, and after the remake just got announced for September, I knew I had to revisit this. I'm rubbing my hands together, I'm ready for this one, let's get into it. The game starts off with Pac-Man taking a little snooze when some ghosts decide to mosey on down and cause a ruckus. They decide to steal the town's golden fruit, which turned out to be what kept this terrorist sealed away. This terrorist, Spooky, he was sealed away for 100 years, and the golden fruit were what was keeping him there. So basically, long story short, we have to get the golden fruit back. So there's 6 different areas in the game, starting with Paradise Meadows, which is basically just the tutorial. You get introduced to the moveset, like how to use the butt bounce and the rev roll. You learn about different power-ups like the steel ball. The early game just has such a happy and peaceful vibe to it that I could literally just sit here and chill and just eat shit like Pac-Man does. This area ends with quite possibly the easiest boss in all of ever. It's basically just a tutorial boss and they tell you exactly how to beat them. He's literally like, "Oh man, I really hope nobody bounces on my tongue." So you bounce on his tongue and then you fucking rev roll his uvula. And then you got your first golden fruit. And it's on to the next area. So the next area is the treetops, and I remember spending a lot of time in this area as a kid. Not because it's hard, but probably just because I had a baby brain and I was like 7 playing this. And I also realized that Pac-Man has some pretty cool idle animations when you're not touching the controller. And I think that's a nice touch, and I think more games should do something like that. Something that I think is really unique and cool for a game like this at the time is when you find and collect these flagships, you get teleported to a more traditional Pac-Man level where you get that classic arcade machine gameplay. There's a lot of different levels like this throughout the game, and apparently most of the levels in the game have something like this. The rest of the level is pretty much more of the same. Once you get to the Inky boss fight, it's another relatively easy boss. You shouldn't really struggle with it. All you have to do is butt bounce on his head, and we're on to the next level. The third area. This is where boys become men. The Snowy Mountains are the best area in the whole game. I don't know what it is. I just really fuck with the vibe here. I love the avalanche levels and the ice skating levels a lot. I just like being able to really tear shit up in the snow. I love a good winter map. The whole thing is just come on. Pinky's boss fight is almost like copy and paste from the Treetops boss fight with slightly different area design. That doesn't make it bad per se, it's just simple. However, it is during this section that I started to feel the difficulty increase just a bit compared to the early game. This was the first boss that I actually died a couple times on. But now that we've got our third golden fruit, it's time to suffer a little. I think the volcano is easily the worst area in the whole game. The level's design is not that bad in terms of like the grand scheme of things, but I did find a lot of the backtracking to be really tedious and annoying. It's a lot of going down one path, pushing a switch, and then backtracking to where you were before so you can go a different way. I think the aesthetic is really cool. I love it's a fucking volcano, like it's sick, but I did find it a little annoying. Clyde was easily the most difficult boss up until this point in the game. Like, he was actually getting me heated. Nope, no pun intended. The amount of times that I would rev roll off the map on accident or walk into the fire that I could barely see and take damage, it was driving me crazy. Like, I honestly feel like this was bad karma for complaining about the early game being too easy, because I had some real trouble with this boss. While I'm going through the footage, I realized that this literally took me like 35 minutes, and I feel like that's far too much for for what it should have taken. But you know the drill by now. You stomp on his head a few times, and we got our next fruit. The fifth area is the ocean. It's full of funky underwater missions that initially brought a new and interesting vibe to the game, but towards the end I started to think that the levels just dragged out a little bit too long. I'm sorry if you hear my dog in the background. This area did bring back a lot of nostalgia. It just felt so reminiscent of the time, the early 2000s. I don't know what it is, just the vibe. I really felt like the music contributed strongly to the atmosphere. There was just a an aura where it really felt like what you're doing right now in the game mattered. There was weight to it. Another note, this might just be a skill issue, but some of these bombs were genuinely fucking impossible to dodge. Now the Mega Whale is where they switch it up on you compared to the other bosses in the game. I don't know why there's a whale that you're fighting. It's a big robot whale with the ghost controlling it, but it's a cool boss fight nonetheless. They give you a limited amount of rockets that you can shoot at once that they have to quote unquote recharge, but they recharge so fast that you can literally just let it fucking sing on this dude. And just like that, we're on to the final part of the game. The final area of the game is Ghost Island. I really like the level design and scenery of this section. We get another skating mission, and I just couldn't help but think of Banshee Boardwalk from Mario Kart 64. But similar to the volcano, I did find parts of the levels tedious, having to go down one path just to hit a button and then backtrack where you came from and repeat the process. Also, again, maybe I'm just poop at the game, but the amount of times I couldn't make a jump or slipped off the ledge of the path had me sick. Like, I'm being serious. Is this me being shit from a butt at the game, or is the game just buggy because it's over 20 years old? Regardless, I liked this area. I thought it was good. I had a good time despite all of my deaths. And now we get into the final boss fight. This boss fight against Spooky was tough. Let me tell you something. This dude shoots like he's prime Curry. I was getting sniped through the tree. I couldn't even see where it was coming from. I was just getting blasted. Pause. I had more trouble with this fight than some Elden Ring bosses. I was literally getting destroyed. I actually hit my first game over here on the last mission in the whole game. And that was where I realized that getting a game over literally does not matter. I know that this game is like kind of baby mode, but there's literally zero repercussions for game overing except for having to redo the fight. Anyways, Spooky has a few different phases throughout the fight. Depending on the phase, he might do something different. He has fucking heat-seeking fireballs that he'll throw at you. He spawns different enemies depending on the phase. And you have to wait until he's done doing that stuff before you can attack him, because he'll drop down low enough for you to flip kick him. I did the math accurately this time, and that fight took me 37 minutes. But we did it, and we saved the day. We saved the Pack world and the Pack people. And Spooky is no more. Fuck you, Spooky. Yeah, that's Pac-Man World 2. The last thing I wanted to take a look at was the arcade back in Pack Village, which is really cool because they have a lot of bonus content that you don't really see in games anymore. So this is Sue's arcade. Inside you have the jukebox where you can listen to any of the game's soundtrack. You can play the classic games, which unlock at different intervals of collecting tokens throughout the game. And you can replay the maze levels too. The last thing I wanted to add was the museum, which you needed 150 tokens for, which is super fucking diesel, and I wasn't going to do that. So I just looked it up, and I figured I'd show you some of the concept art that they show in the game. So they got some cool stuff in here. Whatever that thing is. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It was fun to, go back and play Pac-Man World 2 again. It was a fun game from my childhood that I really enjoyed. So leave a comment if you made it this far, what you want me to play next. I can't believe I forgot to mention this. The whole point of the video, yes, the game is still goated. Is it the best PS2 game ever? No. But it's a great play, it's fun, and I think most people would enjoy it. So yes, I answered the video's question.